Hi YouTube, Darth here. This is Yes or No, a weapon review series where I give a clear and concise answer as to what weapons you should be using in Battlefield 4. Today I'm reviewing the MP7, a personal defense weapon available to the Engineer class. Another H&K weapon, the MP7 was a hipfire god in Battlefield 3. Has it stood the test of time though, and is the MP7 a weapon you should be using in Battlefield 4? Yes or no? Yes. I think the intensity of firepower that the MP7 brings is really only harmed by two facts. One, that you have to actually get it into its effective range, and two, you can't use it as an assault player with medic bags. The MP7 is a CQB powerhouse that has some significant limitations that are generally offset by its good features. Let's talk about those good things now. The minimum time to kill of the MP7 is just about 256 milliseconds. This makes it the 5th fastest killing automatic weapon in the game. In CQB, if you draw first on an enemy and they don't have a shotgun, a FAMAS, Groza, or PDW, you're probably going to win. This is attributable mainly to its high rate of fire at 950 rounds per minute. Set this weapon on a squad of enemies and you'll make short work of them. At 420 meters per second, the MP7 has a slightly better than average bullet velocity for a PDW. Don't mistake this for utility at range, but it does help you win more heads-up trades against other players. If you slap a silencer on the MP7, the velocity reduces somewhat to only 310 meters per second. Ultimately, range is not the friend of the MP7, but the faster velocity does help a touch in CQB. At 40 rounds per magazine, the MP7 has the capability of downing whole squads of players before needing to reload. This comes in handy, particularly on maps like Lockers and Metro, where you often need both firepower and staying power to make breakthroughs. With one round in the chamber, this brings the total ammunition count to 41, a more than healthy amount for any CQB blaster, bested only by the CBG Nailgun, P90, and PP2000. Make no mistake about it, the MP7 is one of the best hipfire weapons in the game. It is probably only surpassed by the P90 because of that weapon's bullpup design. Hipfire is how you'll be primarily engaging enemies, and the MP7 is astonishingly good at it, though not quite as good as it was in Battlefield 3. The MP7 was designed with only one purpose in mind: shred in close quarters, and it fills that role spectacularly well. The shotguns bring instantaneous killing power, but the MP7 can sustain that spree with massive ammo reserve. Really, only the automatic shotguns give it a run for its money, and they cannot be silenced. But the MP7 has serious detractions as well, particularly its range capability, and I'll talk about why now. The damage of the MP7 falls off a cliff beyond 25 meters. The upfront damage is only 20, and starting at just 15 meters that begins to fall off. It ends up at just 12.5 damage at 47.5 meters, requiring an astonishing 8 bullets to kill a target. 8 bullets that you're going to have a near impossible time landing with the PDW bullet velocity and PDW style recoil. The MP7's recoil of 0.35 up, 0.2 left, and 0.4 right is not unusual for a PDW. Neither is its spread increase per shot of 0.099 degrees per shot. But what these two things conspire to do when combined with the weapon's high rate of fire and drop-off is to make the MP7 unwieldy at range. You'll have better luck with rockets beyond 25 meters than you will with bullets, and I highly recommend unstowing a launcher when your enemies are beyond your MP7's grasp. Those are really the primary weaknesses of the MP7, all range related. Now, you can make the MP7 get bullets on target at range by bursting or microbursting, but you're just not going to be as effective as with a weapon designed for those ranges. With that in mind, I also looked at the CQB performance of the MP7 to make sure this weapon was still worth using. I put it up against the CZ3A1, the AS Vol, and the 870 MCS shotgun. Well, shotguns are going to win in this engagement envelope, but they don't have the same staying power and have significant time between shots, so misses are hugely punished. The AS Vol and CZ3A1 have a bit more staying power, but are generally in the same performance envelope as the MP7. The MP7 carves itself a nice middle-of-the-road territory even when pitted against some of the toughest CQB competition, so it's definitely still worth using. The recoil control for the MP7 is going to be a bit different than usual, but first let's go over the stats of this weapon. The upwards recoil is 0.35 degrees, left is 0.2, and right is 0.4. The first shot recoil multiplier is in the stats listed as 2.15, but it actually decreases to just 1.72 thanks to the permanently affixed angled grip. This means that the overall recoil pattern of this weapon is going to carry it up and to the right. To compensate, you'll be pulling down and to the left. Keep in mind that as I'm doing this, I'm aiming down sights. The primary behavior for the MP7 is going to be hipfire. So let's talk about hipfire with this weapon. The The initial spread increases by about 50% to 0.6 degrees. If you're standing still, you don't get any additional penalties while hip firing. Moving only adds a slight bit more variation. But what does catch up to you with the MP7 is the spread combined with the rate of fire. You'll want to fire this weapon in roughly 5 to 7 round bursts. I found the number one thing that would get me killed with the MP7 was hosing too hard in CQB. Even at close distances, you'll be surprised that burst discipline is still very much required if you want to hit anything. The MP7 is a pretty straightforward weapon. You get into close quarters and you start wrecking. Getting there can prove to be somewhat difficult, particularly if you're on a map without a lot of CQB areas. If you find yourself on one of these maps, you're probably using the wrong weapon if you've got the MP7. In that case, maybe consider something else. First up, and I think you've gathered this already, you'll want to use the MP7 almost exclusively in hipfire mode. Get yourself into close quarters. Avoid aiming down sights if you can, and especially avoid that behavior in ranges closer than 15 meters. You want to avoid long-range engagements, especially heads-up if you can. If you're accustomed to longer-ranged weapons, this can be a bit of a learning process. Secondly, I found that running with smoke proved to be somewhat useful for masking my approach so that I could actually get into close quarters. For these times, you'll want to turn off any lasers so that you're not also giving yourself away when charging on through. Next, I recommend a stealthy approach with the MP7. That calls for a suppressor, but you may or may not choose to extend that to your secondary. I'll talk more about this attachment in the next section. Finally, I really want to reiterate that this gun's strength is exclusively CQB. If your engagements happen mostly beyond 15 meters, you'll probably want to consider something else. For me, I ended up using a rocket launcher when I couldn't make the MP7 work. Since the grip is already chosen for you, there's not a whole lot of personalization that you'll get on this weapon. The top users on BF4stats.com also chose my general loadout, so I'll just get straight to it. For my optic, I went with the reflex red dot sight. I honestly think you could put whatever you want on the MP7 and be fine, particularly because you should be mostly hip firing. Being one of the first unlocks for the MP7, I generally found the reflex inoffensive and somewhat more useful in encouraging me to only use aiming down sights on ranged targets. Just keep in mind that the larger the scope, the more it will get in your way when you're hip firing and running around. Next, my accessory is a laser sight. No question here. If you're not running a laser on the MP7, you're doing it wrong. This is a CQB blaster and requires maximum accuracy when firing from the hip and on the move. Put on a laser and only turn it off when you're going through smoke or trying to remain inconspicuous at range. For my barrel, I ran with the suppressor. While this does hurt range performance and lowers the time to kill by a fraction, I don't think there's really a better choice for my playstyle. The compensator can provide improved accuracy, but the suppressor just provides an environment that lets you utilize that giant magazine to just keep on killing. All the enemy really knows is that dead bodies keep on appearing. And then there's no option for the grip, as you're always stuck with an angled grip. Though if I had my choice, I'd put a vertical grip on this weapon for as much run and gun as I found myself doing with the MP7. The MP7 is one of the most powerful CQB weapons in the game. It's not the best in every situation, and it's got serious competition from a number of weapons even in the CQB game. But it's relatively stable, kills quickly, and provides just enough of an interesting role to be deserving of a yes vote. But it does make me wish PDWs could be used by more than just the engineering class. If you find yourself liking the MP7, the P90 offers even more ammo for a bit less firepower. In exchange, you also pick up even better hipfire performance. If you need something that's a bit more versatile at range, you can't go wrong with the PDWR. Essentially a carbine hiding in the PDW weapon stock, the PDWR is probably one of the most versatile weapons in the game and is particularly boosted by its amazing hipfire. That's it for this episode of Yes or No. If there's something you think I missed, or if you have a particularly different take on the MP7, please let me know in the comments below. If there's a weapon you'd like to see reviewed on this series, leave a comment indicating which weapon. We're almost to the launch of Battlefield 1, and I will be continuing this series for that game. If you like what you saw, please be sure to force choke the like button. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, YouTube. Oh god, there's more! Just keep coming!